So tonight's featured reader is we're going to feature the poetry anthology, A Joy to See, and this is edited, put together by Sherri Levine, who's with us tonight. And I'll give you Sherri's bio, and I'll just turn it over to Sherri, and she can take it from there. Sherri Levine is a Oregon. Her poetry has appeared in Prairie Schooner, Poet Lore, Black English Review, Jewish Literary Journal, Ms. Moore Anthology, and other journals. She was awarded the Lois Cranston Poetry Memorial Prize by Calyx in 2019. She won first prize, Poet's Choice, and second prize in the Oregon Poetry Association Annual Contests. Her first full-length poetry collection.
Thank you, Mark. What an honor. I read for Mark, I don't know, at the Ike House like 6 or 7 years ago, so we're old friends. What an honor to be here. Thank you so much for coming. It's a little different than we did this at Powell's last month, and which was really shell-shocking, and it's really nice to kind of relax a little bit here with you tonight. So first I want to thank the people who helped me with this book. I want to thank the poets who graciously and generously wrote these ekphrastic poems, to the supportive and loving poetry community, to Anne Farley for her close attention to detail in proofreading this manuscript, to Dale Champlin over there, my editor, my publisher, my soul sister. I could not have done this without Dale. This took about a year. This was a lot of work. And to Kay Levine, my mother, whose paintings inspired the poets and continue to inspire me. So I want to talk a little bit about how this project began. So my mother, I'm going to talk about my mother in a second. After my mother passed, she was a painter, and I was left with all of her greeting cards, like 300 of them. And well, I ordered 300 because I wanted to. I was a little crazy back then. And so they were sold at a gallery up the street where I live, and the gallery owner called me and said, "Sherri, we're not going to sell cards anymore, come and get them." So I came and I got them, and I wasn't sure what to do with them, and I thought of this idea of sending them out to the poets. And so there's so many Salem poets who come to Head for the Hills. Is our poetry series that I started 5 years ago. It's not as amazing as Mark, who does this every week. We do it once a month. And the poets here I've asked to read came to Head for the Hills. And so Dale now hosts Head for the Hills, and I'm so grateful to her to do that. So I want to talk about my mom and how special she was to me. My mother, Kay Levine, born Kay Weissman, was my best friend. She was an incredible artist, mother, and grandmother. Born in 1937 in the Washington Heights neighborhood of New York City, she started painting at a young age. She earned her bachelor's degree at Michigan State University and her master's degree from Yeshiva University, Stanford, and St. Rose College in Albany, New York, where she lived until she moved to Portland to be close to me. She studied art at the Art Students League in Woodstock, New York. Her mentor, young Jen, said that she was a master colorist, and when you look at these paintings, you'll see why. Her medium was mostly oil, and some of these paintings included in the book are pastel and watercolor. She was also an educator. She taught art to children and literacy to adults, seniors, and to prisoners in maximum security prisons such as Sing Sing. I don't know if you've heard of Sing Sing, but she taught there. Yeah, and she wasn't afraid. She was really fearless. I was such in awe of her. She was rarely afraid and usually determined to do what she wanted to do. My mother understood my passion for poetry. She came She came to most of my poetry readings and to the events I hosted. She was a special friend who I profoundly miss. And so tonight, I want to celebrate her art, talk a little bit more. My mother and I would take walks at night. She developed Alzheimer's, and we just were together every night. I bought a house around the corner to where she lived so I could be close to her. My mother and I inspired each other, so I'm reading this from the back of the book where it shows her picture. My mother and I inspired each other, me with my poetry and her with her art. She understood the hard work and joy of creating and always encouraged me to write. For this project, I asked 27 extraordinary poets to write poems in response to my mother's paintings. I was pleased and honored that they generously and passionately responded with beautiful ekphrastic poems. This book is a gift and a celebration. My mother lives on through these paintings, and I want to read you her statement that I actually recently found. She said, I extract an emotional impression from whatever is before me, whether it be still life, landscape, or the figure. This impression is a continuous search for balance between light, shadow, and contrasting colors. My paintings are rich in texture and tone, which for me brings energy to the compositional elements. So if you have the book, I'm going to call each poet by the order on the list. So let's see. I'm honored to welcome the first poet, Susan Woods Morris. Please welcome Susan.
Thank you, Sherri, for putting together this wonderful tribute book, because it really is beautiful. And for allowing me to write to one of your mom's paintings. I didn't know Sherri's mom, but from hearing Sherri talk about her and seeing all the artwork and the poems in here, she seems like she was a wonderful person. And I was very happy to get the painting, Irises. I don't know how much you can see it, but it's a beautiful painting. And I liked this one in particular because I garden and I do raise irises. And I think when you kind of look into the depths of an iris, I don't know, there's something about their beautiful faces. So I was thinking about that and relationships between people and beautiful artwork. And I tried to capture that in this poem. It's called Painted Memories, after Sherri Levine, Irises. Purple iris thrive here, crowned, wingtips fluttering in the breeze. As your paintings came alive, I cherished a child's wonder of memories. Your face, my inner sanctum, everywhere breaths of beauty. Iris with cream-colored hearts hidden deep like your smile, recalling a delicate rustle of personalities wafted from you to me and back again, paintings and flowers resolute, blossoming tall in my imaginings with the ephemeral fragrance of purple. Our lives, their fragility, held for too short a time, all the more precious in this stately elegance with their refusal to bow down to incoming rains. Thank you. I guess I probably should have said I wrote it from Sherri's point of view or imagined point of view, but that probably became obvious. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. It's such a, most of the people that here I've only seen on Zoom. I mean, I've seen recently. So it's just great to see people in the flesh. It really makes a difference. So our next poet is Anne Farley. Please welcome Anne Farley.
Thank you. We're all different heights. I had the pleasure of meeting Kay 2 or 3 at Head for the Hills events, and all you poets know, we absolutely love people who come to poetry readings. So, it was great to know her a little, get to know her a little bit, and just so devoted to you. It was really special.
And could you give us the page number?
Page number
14.
14. I wanted to honor Kay's role as a teacher, and a teacher of art, especially to children. And for several years, when my kids were in elementary school and a little in middle school, I was involved in the Beaverton Art Literacy Program. And we tried to get kids involved and interested in art, but not just saying, do you like this? Is it good? Those are horrible questions. Don't ask a kid that. So we would ask things like, if you could be in this painting, or how does this painting make you feel? We tried to get them into the art and experiencing the art in a more personal way. So that's the approach I took to, I think we need some more chairs. That's a good thing.
There's a few over there. There's some over here.
We can both sit here. We can sit here.
Oh, no problem. So I took the approach of being in a painting, and her approach to education. So this is the painting. For those of you that don't have the book, a vase of pink roses. And another fascinating thing I want to mention is, I counted, there are something like 7 paintings of pink flowers. All the poems are wildly different. She just says something about us as poets. If you could be in this painting, would you reach and smooth blossoms with fingertips, rearrange? Lean in, press cheek to petals, breathe deeply of pink and green. Would you shrink to curl in curve, tuck in shadow, slip, stem, sleep on a leaf? Or smaller yet, would you be pigment afloat in oily sheen, cobalt blue, vermilion, ochre, indigo, red madder, lead white, mixed and layered to suggest line, shape, shadow? Would you be a swirl of lavender, illusion of white light on glossy days? Is this how you shine?
Thank you. I'll never get tired of that poem, man. Thank you so much. So our next poet, my publisher, is on page 16, is Dale Champlin, First Blush.
I knew Kay Levine. She was a beautiful woman and a fantastic artist, and so lovely. She used to come to Head for the Hills and join the rest of us poets, and she was such a wonderful, warm presence. Here's a picture that I did an ekphrastic poem to, and you can see those are kind of rosy colored roses. They aren't exactly pink. This is called First Blush, after Kay Levine, Red Rose. The room is quiet, ocean green and lilac, not noisy red. I want to be rosy red, the tall blushing blossom, not the bloom beginning to droop. I wish to beguile a man, entice him to pluck me from blue-green water, trim my long stem, strip me of my leaves, snip off my thorns, and thread me into his lapel.
Well, my next poet is really special. Nitsa and I, we've never met. We've only been on Zoom. And not only did Nitsa write her own poem, but she actually helped one of my students. I teach English to immigrants and refugees, and one of my students is from Argentina, and I wanted him to write a poem. And he said, I'm not a poet. I'm a filmmaker. I don't know how to do this. And I said, well, let's ask Nitsa if she can help him. And she did. She helped him, and he actually won first place in the Oregon Poetry Association Award in Spanish. So, and that thanks to Nitsa. So, let's welcome Nitsa Hernandez. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and see many faces that we used to see from the waist up. I never, thought about them being so tall. So
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
tall.
good to see you, too. You're shorter than
And also, embracing today Sherri. We feel very close because through online communication, we have shared so many things. And I felt very honored and humbled when she asked me to be part of this project. And when she sent the card that I received, I looked at it and I was thinking, oh, my goodness, what are you going to, be saying about this card? And I put it on the wall. I stuck it and pasted it there on my wall with the tape. And it took me like 3 days to feel words for that poem. And it took me like a conversation with it. And every day it took me a little bit until I finally put the poem in place. So it's called Mighty Presence, after Sherri Levine, Chartreuse, and it's on page 24. And this is the art for those of you that don't have a book. More pinkish flowers. It says that it appeared standing proudly on a lime green foliage ground. That imposing flower vase, holding a lush bouquet of roses, dark green leaves and upright stems. It emerged from the ground up, full of pinkish laughing roses, on a heavy sunset day, with a dark maroon sky wall like an omen on display. With only one curved handle and a body of pink reflection, that vase has a mighty presence, something leveled and mysterious. A suggestive flower vase, so determined to stay grounded.
So Nitsa, you'll read Sebastian.
Oh, what's happening,
I
right?
know, yes, that'd be great, thank you. Sorry, what page is this now?
Okay, because Sebastian is from Argentina, he wrote the poem in Spanish, originally in Spanish, and then we worked on the translation. I think it would be, respectful for him to read the poem in Spanish first, and then I'll read it in English. It says otoño, which is autumn in Spanish. After autumn in New York, arden en llamas cobrizas las cabelleras de esos gigantes, mientras resisten el tiempo, un suelo vigoroso les sirve como base. Silueta desgarrada sobre el cielo, ¿acaso son montañas? La calma es una cuerda tensa en ese instante previo a la caída. Óxido, ocre, musgo, estallan desde el centro, pigmentos de una edad dorada, paisajes de rompecabezas. Autumn. They burn in coppery flames, the hair of those giants. As they resist time, a vigorous soil serves as its base. Torn silhouette over the sky. Are they mountains? Calm is a tightrope in that moment before the downfall. Rust, ochre, moss, burst from the center. Pigments from a golden age, puzzle landscape.
Thank you so much, Lisa. He's going to be watching this soon, so I just want to just take a break for a second. And when Dale and I were collecting postcard after poem, we were like, wow, right? We're like, these are so good. And we just felt really lucky. I want to talk about Marilyn Johnston for a moment. Marilyn Johnston is very special to me. We also haven't met in person, but she actually helped me come up with this idea. I don't know how. One day we were talking on Zoom, and I was so close to my mom that I wanted to honor her. And Marilyn helped me with this idea of having a postcard and having a poem next to it. And I think it was a year ago, and I just want to thank you for that, because that meant so much to me. And so Marilyn is on page 26. Let's welcome Marilyn Johnston.
Thank you, Sherri, and to see what you've done with it, and Dale, and I just, and the people in this room that made it happen. I'm just so pleased to be part of this whole idea. I wrote this poem when I got the postcard, or the letter that came with the card. This is called View from Vashon Island by Kay Levine. And I immediately wanted to channel a mother-daughter relationship, and I have 2 daughters, and it didn't take long for me, which is unusual for me, to think of what I wanted to call it, and then I had to write the poem. So this is the poem that came from the response. When my daughter asks how she'll know she's in love, I tell her to recall that first time at sunrise as she carried her kayak to the water's edge, her back to the island, how she followed the call of a heron and an osprey as it returned to the nest to feed its young, how it felt to float with the current, sometimes slow and steady, sometimes the thrill of rapids on the way downstream, or maybe that moment on the drive home as the sunset painted its crimson palette on the mountainside, how with each, she says, it was as if the ground shook beneath her. I tell her falling in love can be like all of this, to wait, let it unfold in front of her, unhurried.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's so beautiful. I love that poem. I love all these poems. Well, Nancy Baker is a poet who lives in Baker City, and she's really far away, and I asked Dale Champlin to read her poem, which is on page 32. Let's welcome Dale Champlin reading Nancy Croissant.
I'm so sorry Nancy can't be here, but she lives way too far away. And her poem is lovely. I got the chills when I read it the first time. Here's the picture, and it's on page 32. Beauty as self-portrait, after Kay Levine, woman reading poetry. Notice the texture of the canvas, not quite filled in, most prominent, her dearest comportment, presented, she leaning lightly back in her kitchen chair after filling the children's baskets with figs and bread and soft cheese at water's edge. Note the red camellia at the base of her hair, lifted, where someone, perhaps even she, has pinned it, maybe after making love along a tender spring path in late afternoon. What she holds quietly between her fingertips is one secret only she can disclose if she chooses and calls you over.
Okay, I know Nancy's going to be watching this too. So, our next poet is a really good friend of mine. I've known Lois Rosen for, I don't know, like 11 years, and we've become really good friends. And she's a tremendous poet. And her poem is on page 36, Kay's Cactus. Let's welcome Lois Rosen.
I'm so lucky to know Sherri. We met at PDX Writers, and from then on, we were in lots of different groups together, and she was so encouraging. It seems magical to me that I'm here with you. This is so lovely. Okay, so this is Kay's Cactus. Kay's Cactus, after Kay Levine. The cactus yearns for wildness. Bracts curve like dancers' arms, flinging jade and mint green shades down under rose-pink charms. The deeper ruby floral center thickens as layers spread wide. Horizontal sprays gather, arcing as warm shades collide. This Thanksgiving cactus births spring color in tropical places where pastel flushes astonished with joy. Kay's art has no thorns, it embraces.
Thank you, Lois. Our next poet is Norma Heiser. Norma, are you ready? I don't know, maybe we have to find a page. What page is Norma on?
46.
46. I'm so happy Norma can be here. She's so beautiful. Let's welcome her.
Yes, Kay and I were the elders when the Head for the Hills started. And we would go to Salvador Molly's afterward and have so much fun. But it's nice having someone in our decade. This is called Still Life Forever, after Kay Levine's Still Life Beside the Window. Amber wine bottle attracts viewer with brushes full of golden yellow luster melting down its sexy shoulder through a stomach punch from a squatty blue vase pregnant with flowers, violet lilacs or pink dahlias. Color of weight gives objects their place, brown brushy black, a river of shadow for a life of stillness. White confetti tossed all over the place, assuring daylight forever. Potato, 2 fruits, back to the amber bottle. Viewer imagines a tempting exit through the glassy blue window into the prettiest backyard in the neighborhood. Viewer will never know for sure because this life is still, realizing her life thirst for just one small glass of Chardonnay.
My mom loved Chardonnay. She loved white wine. I wish we could all have some wine. You don't have alcohol here, do you? So our next poet, no introduction, Mark Jones. Page 50. On page 50, Mark Jones. And you're going to read the papers.
pals about writing it, and I can't remember what I said, other than I don't think it made a lot of sense.
It was brilliant.
Or it was brilliant. You choose. But like Nietzsche, I sat with this painting for a while before I came up with this poem. I think that's all I'll say about it.
Something about a cubicle.
Yeah, I hung it up in my cubicle. And- but it-
Yes.
That's interesting.
here's the real
And
thing.
500 people to 15. I remember now.
So when I wrote this, so I worked for Oregon Health Authority, and I worked at collecting data, and a lot of times there are crises, there are storms, and then they send me in. Not because I'm good at it, but because things seem to calm down. I don't know what that means, but that's what happens. This is called The Calm Before the Storm. This is after Calm Before the Storm by Sherri Levine. In this calm, howling winds, hushed hues, waits, laughing, marshmallow clouds with blazing peaks, cardstock blue, robin's egg blue. Peak between anticipation alters our landscape. Palette knife, snicker flies between colors. Sepia waters, reflection will fade. A blush of words flies from unheard branches, meanings from brushes cry like shredded leaves. Distant sky, black bottomed boats and Greek fire. But not now, not yet. Vows your vicious wind. And I'm also reading the poem Woodstock, New York on page 44 by Peter Gordon. So this is after Sherri Levine, Woodstock, New York. From behind a riot of indigo, gold, blue, and magenta brush strokes that cover that low hill, a gray dirt path curves into the foreground. I lean closer and closer to canvas until I can stand in the picture. Gritty dirt under toes, gray pebbles dig into soles. My soul aches to see behind that multi-hued hill. I move along path's turquoise edge, deeper into purpose dark. Colors drip on my clothes. I wonder, what will I discover in that place the artist imagined but could not paint? What dream of light might I create? I turn right and vanish from sight.
Well, Peter Gordon actually lives in Orlando, Florida, but he's part of our Head for the Hills community. And I told him he's getting lucky because Mark Jansen's going to read his poems. Our next poet is Francis Ophelia. Let's welcome Francis Ophelia.
Thank you, Sherri. And thanks everybody for reading. I met Kay maybe just 2 or 3 times, but it was obvious the connection between Sherri and Kay. There was a strong connection, a strong love there, and I just feel honored to be able to participate in the celebration of that. And this poem is on page 52. And the painting is called Two Trees. And it's a landscape picture. I mean, I love being out in nature, so it's a place I would tend to end up, probably. So, everlasting, after Kay Levine, Two Trees. You, golden goddess, descend from gray granite mountains on words of wind, beckon the last warmth of autumn. Arrowhead leaves swirl in dance amid shamanic dreams, layers of amber, bronze, clay, evergreen spirals, sandstone afternoons. You welcome the voices of children who emerge as poets and wade into oceans of streams.
Francis, that's beautiful. Thank you to all the readers tonight. I'm really overwhelmed with love, and losing the person closest to you is unimaginable pain, and I still grieve and I still write about her. But I want to close the evening with my poem, which is on page 60. And it's a title from my book that I published about her. So it's a photograph, as you can see on page 61. Stealing flowers from the neighbors. No dark sunglasses, no hood over my head, no scissors, shopping bag slung over my shoulder. I slide behind bushes, pricked by brambles, yank and snap, rip and tear. No worry or rush or hush from the birds. Squirrels, too busy collecting nuts, don't stop on the lawn to judge. Dandelion seeds fill the air like dust. A silent sneeze, a cough caught in my throat. I crawl under towering weeds and hedges, wedge myself between rocks and prickly thorns. I do not feel the scraping of my knees or the bee sting, burn of the sun on my cheeks, heat on my hatless head. Stealing flowers from the neighbors, I could only think of you in your hospice bed, your weary head waiting for me to appear. Thank you very much.
Well, first, wasn't this a terrific evening? Thank you everyone who read it. So there's some housekeeping here. Number one is, there's some books. If you want to purchase a book, talk to Sherri. They're $25. She takes cash, cards,
Square.
in kind, who knows? So, we have 2 sign-up sheets over there. One's for the mailing list and one's for the open mic. So if you want to read the open mic, sign up on the open mic list. And if you want to be on the mailing list, sign up on the mailing list. We also have some brownies and some cookies. So eat the brownies and eat the cookies. And we have iced tea. We have some iced tea, so drink the iced tea. We're going to take a couple of minutes break and come back to the open mic. Okay.